and welcome everyone to our webinar about worry to action, helping your child with developmental delay succeed. And so we're glad to have everyone here today. And we got a guest speaker with us. It's Jenni Dees. She's an early steps facilitator, and we're glad to have her here to talk about this topic. Um, Thank you. And Jenni, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Wallace. So I hope everyone can hear me. I cannot see the chat feature while my screen is sharing, so Wallace is kind of monitoring that for me. I actually don't even know. Can y'all hear me? My audio? Okay, cool. My audio
Yes,
is
we
on.
can hear you. You're
Okay,
good.
cool.
And
I'm
I will be monitoring the chat for you, sure.
Thank you. I am not a presenter usually. I'm just a therapist. I work with children birth to 18 and help them. So when China asked me to do this presentation, I said, sure. So a little bit about me. I am an owner and an occupational therapist of Therapy Works of Southwest Louisiana. I have 10 years of experience and have worked from 4-day-old infants to 100-plus-year-old adults. But little kids and early intervention is my passion. I'm also a mom of 4, and those are my 4 chaos crew. And 2 of them have struggled with delays and have special needs. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to look at developmental milestones, some of the main ones we expect to see in children from birth to 3 years old, some ways to recognize if your child is delayed in meeting these milestones. I'm going to give you all a few little ideas of things you can do to help development progress, and then we'll take a brief look at what comes next after 3 years old. Okay, so first we're going to look at our newborns, our birth to 3-month age. A lot of people call this the 4th trimester. So typically around 3 months old, or well, by the time your baby is 3 months old, things I look for are when you lay them on their stomach, I want them to be able to lift their head up and turn it side to side to look at things. They need to be able to clear their face from the floor without any trouble. Are we moving our arms and legs? And then also we want to look at our little hands. Are our hands closed all the time or open most of the time? Because by 3 months old, we typically want those fingers to be open instead of that reflexive closed posture at birth. Cognitive milestones, not too many. It's a newborn baby, but they want to kind of follow the adults. Like if you're making a lot of noise, they might turn your head and look in that general direction. They can't see you yet from that far away, but they know you're there. If you put a toy really close to them, especially like a high contrast item, like black and white and red items, they'll watch the toys. Socially, they begin to recognize their parents' voices and they'll calm down when they hear them. If they're crying and you pick them up, they calm down. And a lot of them are just smiling at 3 months. Sometimes they're a little bit late on that, but for the most part, they have some social smiles. A newborn really can't care for themselves very much. Sucking is very calming in this newborn phase. And so ideally we want to see the baby bringing their hands to their mouth to kind of suck on them and calm them down, or they'll try when they're hungry to indicate that they're hungry. And then we want them to be feeding well. That means whether they're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, feeding shouldn't last longer than about 20 minutes at most. They shouldn't be super fussy, taken in a lot of air. They shouldn't have a bunch leaking out of the sides of their mouth, things like that. Newborn babies don't play too much either. They just kind of watch and observe the world. They should make cooing sounds at this age, which are kind of your ooh, ah kind of noises. And then they should startle at loud sounds. So some red flags for development. If by 3 months, when you lay your baby on the floor, they're not able to lift their head off the surface and or cannot turn their head to both sides. That means they only want to look in one direction. Those are some flags that our gross motor skills are impaired and we need to take a look and see what we can do to help. A lot of times those babies that have trouble lifting their head, you'll find they're really, really floppy. So that could be issues with strength or muscle tone, and we'll talk about some ways to work on those. Babies that don't want to move their arms and legs very much, or they can only move their arms and legs together. So like if they move one arm, both arms move. If they move one leg, both legs move. Think about like frog kicking versus bicycle kicking. We want to see where the legs are moving reciprocally instead of together. If their hands are constantly closed and you never see them open, that's kind of that's more of a fine motor milestone. But that's a red flag that we need to kind of get in there and see how we can help. And then how I say, keeping head turned in one direction. If they don't appear to notice toys that are high contrast and close to them, don't kind of turn their heads to follow you when you make noise at the other side of the room. Those can be milestone or indications that cognitive milestones may be delayed, but it could also be due to vision or hearing deficits. And so that's something that I typically recommend you bring up to your doctor, because I don't remember if they go to the doctor at 3 months or 4 months old. But that's something that you'd want to bring up to make sure that vision and hearing are in fact intact. If y'all just heard the door open, this is Maddie. She's a coworker of mine. She's another OT. She came to listen. Socially, we want to make sure, or we want them to be able to like recognize your voice and calm down. And then when you pick them up and cuddle them, we want to calm down. I have the social smiles on here as red flags. If at 3 months old, they're not displaying consistent social smiles, that is okay. But if you have never seen a social smile at all, and that means like they see you walk into the room and they smile at you, or dad gets home from work and he sees them and they smile, that can be a sign that we need to kind of keep an eye on things. Self-care wise, we want them to bring their hands to their mouth. And if they're struggling significantly with feeding or like not sucking on pacifier, some babies don't like a pacifier, but if you put a pacifier in a baby's mouth at this age, reflexively, they should suck on it. They kind of don't have a choice. And then let's see. And then communication wise, if you don't hear any sort of cooing sounds, oohs, ahs, things like that, or not reacting to loud sounds, that's another thing, kind of like the cognitive. Let's bring it up to pediatrician, make sure eyes and ears are working well. Okay, so things you can do to help this age group, this infant 0 to 3 age group. As much tummy time as possible. Tummy time can look differently. It doesn't have to be laying on the floor and the baby screaming their head off, because that's usually what happens at this age. I recommend doing tummy time on your chest, to where you lay down on the sofa and put baby on top of you, or you lay on the floor and put baby right in front of you. If they're having trouble lifting their head, you can get you a towel and roll it up into a little U shape, kind of like a Bobby looks, and put it under their chest and armpits. And that gives them a little bit of a boost to get that head up off the ground. Also, tummy time does not have to be a marathon. This age, they don't tolerate it very long usually. So, 1-2 minute intervals multiple times throughout the day is better than a 5-minute screaming session twice a day. It's all about the quality as much as it is the quantity. Encourage your baby to follow your toys or your face from side to side while they're either on their back or on their stomach. That's a great game you can play. Babies tend to love looking at other people, so it works well. You can even get toys that light or spin up at this age, and they'll follow those. Walgreens has a lot on sale around the holidays for about $3, and they're my favorite little spinner toys ever. I use them all the time. If your baby is having trouble doing that reciprocal motion with their arms and legs, which is like moving the right side up while the left side goes down, practice that with them. Everyone does bicycle kicks to help get the gas out, but what they don't realize is that is a great motor skill that they are working on too, and they're helping messages go from the left to the right side of the brain to build those connections that they're going to need for things like crawling. As for the fine motor, we talked about how if babies don't keep their hands open, that can be a concern. The biggest thing to do for that is that deep pressure in the palm. So take your fingers and you're just going to press in their palm and spread it apart. It's like a little baby massage. The biggest thing to help with, honestly, cognitive, communicative, and play milestones is to just talk to your baby. Have them with you throughout the day, narrate what you do all day long. My grandma used to read us the obituaries, and as she said, it wasn't what you said, it was about how you said it. So think of it like that. Just use your most happy sing-songy voice and engage with your child. When your baby's just having some alone playtime, You don't necessarily need all of the fancy bright lights and things like that. Just some simple toys, black, white, red. A mirror is a great thing. Sometimes simple is better. Um, at this age, you cannot spoil a baby. They are not physically and mentally developed enough to be spoiled. So if they're crying, they need you to soothe them. It helps build a secure foundation. It actually helps teach them how to soothe themselves. So the old adage that if you pick your baby up too much when they're crying, they're going to get spoiled, that is 100% not true. So yeah. So something to remember about this fourth trimester. I have 4 kids. I know it is hard. Do the best you can and know that you are doing everything you can for your child. Also, remember that you need to take care of yourself. When you're on empty, you can't give anything to anyone else. Social media is so lying. Please, please, please don't compare yourself to it. They only post the best, they don't show you the worst. And then we always want to watch out for symptoms of postpartum depression. It happens to way more people than you think, and it is something that is very easily helped so that you can be happier and therefore your baby and you have a stronger bond at this point. I posted some of the major symptoms to look at on here. I'm not going to go through them, but just don't be afraid to reach out to a friend or a healthcare professional if you are in need. Okay, so let's look at our babies from 4 to 6 months. This is a really fun age. They're kind of starting to understand the world, and I really, really like it. So some milestones we want to meet. You want them to be able to hold their head steady in all positions. Now, not like sitting by themselves, but like if you're holding them and sitting, their head shouldn't be flopping forward or sideways. If they're on their tummy, they should be able to lift and turn and look at everything going on in the world. We want them to roll in all directions. So that means from back to tummy, tummy to back, and from the left side and right side. A lot of times, if a baby has a condition like torticollis, which is a shortening of a muscle in the neck, causing them to turn their head in only one direction, they may roll one way, but they don't roll the other way. When they're on their tummy at this age, they should be able to push those arms straight up, reach for some toys, and do just about anything they want to. A lot of babies are sitting independently by 6 months, but some babies aren't. That's okay. What I want to look for at 6 months is if I place the baby in sitting and help them get their little hands on the ground for support, can they stay in that little like tripod position for a couple of seconds? As long as they can stay there, if we keep offering the opportunity, they usually get it pretty quickly. And then one of the major things I look for at this time is their head position when you're pulling them to sit. So when they're infants, they have what's called a head lag, and that's where when you pick them up, how the newborn's head falls back behind them. By this age, that should be gone. They should be having their head in line with their body while you're pulling them up, or even tucking their chin to their chest to kind of activate those tummy muscles. So cognitive and play are kind of the same at this age because you learn through play as a child and a baby. So we want them to be interested in their hands and feet. They're going to chew on their feet. They're going to chew on their hands. They're going to put everything they possibly can in their mouths. That's a normal developmental milestone. I know it's really gross and there's germs, but unfortunately it's needed to learn because there's more sensory receptors in your mouth than anywhere else. So they're going to learn more by using their mouth. They should be reaching for toys, grabbing toys. If they grab a toy with their left hand, they should be able to move it over to their right hand. A lot of them are banging toys on things. If you bang, they bang. And they should be able to kind of pick up small items. It's going to be kind of difficult for them. They may take a few tries and it's not going to look pretty, but they should be able to at least get it in their hands. So by 6 months for self-care, once again, they really can't do much for themselves, but when they're hungry and they see that bottle or the breast, they should open their mouth and be like, oh yeah, food. And then if they're full, they should close their mouth to tell you that they don't want any more. At 6 months, most babies are ready to take purees, or if you're doing baby-led weaning, to be initiating that process. Some babies aren't, but for the most part, they are. We'll talk about feeding a little later because it's kind of complicated. And then communication. In addition to our oohs and ahs, we should start getting some consonant sounds in there. So ba 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 da 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 da, and they'll make squealing noises like little pterodactyls. Okay, so red flags. If they can't hold their head steady in all the positions, that's a cue that those muscles are weak and we need to get in there and help. Honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, the best way to help with that is tummy time. Tummy time is like the magic end all be all with babies. If there's a head lag when pulling to sit, again, that is an indication that those muscles are weak and tummy time. Yay. If they're only rolling in one direction, that's a red flag, and that can be due to a couple different things, which we'll talk about in a minute. If they're not able to push up on those arms and reach for a toy while they're on their tummy, that's another sign that we got some weak tummy muscles. And tummy time fixes most of those. So for cognitive and play, if you don't see them putting everything under the sun in their mouth, or at least trying to, they don't seem to realize that their hands and feet belong to themselves, it's still kind of like this foreign object that's just, why is it there? If they're only wanting to do like the same movement over and over, like moving their arms up and down, putting their hand in front of their face and moving it away, or for toys, like I only want to touch the soft fleece blanket. I don't want to touch anything else. Grass is a different story. A lot of them don't like grass at this age. That's not a big deal. Some grass is pokey, so I don't blame them. And then we want them to be transferring the toys from one side to the other, between hands at midline. So that's like holding something at their chest and moving it from one to the other. That's really important because that tells me that those messages are moving between the right and left hemisphere of the brain well. If we don't have that well established, crawling is not going to go well because that is a requirement for it. So at 6 months, a lot of babies are starting to do solids, like I said. Some gagging is understandable. The gagging is a body's natural defense to tell the baby that, hey, I didn't do something quite right. Let's try again. So that's okay. But if they are gagging every single time everything is placed in the mouth, that's a cue that something's going on. At this age, they should be able to finish their bottle or finish a breastfeeding session in 10 to 15 minutes at most. Otherwise, they can end up burning more calories than they intake. And typically at this age, we start to see the emergence of some more self-soothing. Now, it's not going to be like they're hysterical and can calm themselves down. It's like, they wake up and they're a little from it at night and they fuss a little bit and then roll over and go back to sleep. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it's not. It's just the beginning. For communication, if the only noise they make is crying, or if they don't react to loud sounds, those are big red flags. And once again, we need to make sure that those hearing systems are in place before we start just assuming it's a delay. So things to help. Like I said earlier, tummy time is the best thing in the world. So limit time in baby containers as much as you can. So that's your things like your bouncers, your swings, your jumpers, your pack. What are those? Rock and plays. I don't even know if they have those anymore. Sorry, my youngest baby's 4. It's been a while for the baby containers. As a mom, I get it. We need those things sometimes. The swing was a lifesaver for my oldest child. That was the only way I could get dinner cooked. But make sure you're doing a good balance. Give them time to play on the floor when you can. And if you got to get something done, do what you got to do, but just make sure there's a balance. If your baby isn't rolling yet, that's a big, big problem. So one thing you can do is when your baby's laying on the floor, get their favorite toy and hang it right above their face and then move it in an arc from one side all the way over. The weight of that big head that they have is really helpful in helping them learn to roll. Just make sure that their arm is in front of them instead of like down by their side, because if it's down by their side, they can't get over it. So just move that arm if you need to. A yoga ball is another really great tool to use for babies at this age. I will lay babies on their tummy, and if I hold on to their hips really well and roll them forward a little bit, and that gives them an extra boost to push up and gain some strength. You can do that. You can roll them side to side. That encourages them to roll, because as they're rolling over to, let's see, I don't know rights and lefts very well. As they're rolling to their left, it's going to cause them to extend their right arm, which is what's needed for rolling. Same way the other way. You can also do sitting in that. If your baby has rolling pretty well established and has good head control in sitting, we want to make sure that head control is good, because we don't want the head bobbling around. Sit them on top of a yoga ball and hold them at either right under their armpits or at their hips, just depending on how much support they need. And you can roll them gently from side to side or front and back. You should see their trunk lean forward, backward, or to the opposite side that you're rolling. That's really important for teaching them how to sit independently without those hands for support. And most babies think it's fun, and then I bounce them a little bit because it makes them laugh usually. If they're really struggling with reaching for toys when they're on their tummy, I like to give them a little bit of support. I get like a wedge, or you can like stack pillows with like 2 pillows at the top and 1 at the bottom, and lay them to where their feet are at the skinny end and their head is by the fat end. That gives them a little bit of boost and helps with that gravity. As far as the rolling only to one direction, as I said earlier, sometimes it can be due to just the baby not having practice, sometimes muscle control issues, or sometimes muscle tightness disorders like torticollis. One of the things that I really like parents to do is kind of sit on the floor when their baby's playing and block them from rolling in the preferred direction. So I take my leg and I put it right against them so they cannot roll the way they know how. And then I help them learn to roll the other way. So for cognitive and communicative, once again, at this age, just talk to your baby. Talk about everything, talk about nothing, sing to them, use silly voices. They love it. You can copy the sounds they're making and make it a little game. They think it's great. Screen time, I know, so the AAP, which is the American Academy for Pediatrics, does not recommend screen time for children under 2 years old. I agree and disagree with that, but babies at this age really don't need the screen. They learn nothing from the screen. They don't have the cognitive ability to understand what is going on. Basically, they're just looking at pretty flashing lights, and it's overstimulating their little brains. So limit that screen time as much as you can. I know if there's older siblings that are watching TV, it can be really hard. Lay the baby facing the other way. If they turn towards the TV, when you go back in the room and notice it, turn them again. At least they're working on some gross motor skills while they're watching. I mean, it's better than nothing, but just do your best. Okay, so our 7 to 9 month olds. These are the ones that start getting into mischief. So by 9 months, we want our babies to be moving into sitting by themselves. That means if you lay them on the floor, they can figure out how to get into sitting. There's going to do it a ton of different ways, but I want them to get there. We should be able to pick up small items with what's called a raking grasp. That means like grabbing it, taking your hand and pulling your fingers towards your palm to grab it. And they should be getting pretty good at that at this age. If that's a hard one to work on if they're having issues, unless they're eating like Cheerios or Puffs, because as soon as they grab something, it goes in their mouth. At this age, a lot of babies are beginning to pull up to stand. So you need to kind of watch where you put things on counters, on like little tables and sofas and things like that. They should be able to sit without any support, no hands down, nothing like that, and reach in all sorts of directions while they're playing. And they should be starting to get in quadruped, which is up on their hands and knees with their belly off the ground. That's the key. That belly should not be on the ground. A lot of babies are crawling at this age, but it's okay if they're not quite there yet. As long as they're getting on that hands and knees position, I'm happy, because crawling will come soon after. Babies are little experimenters at this age. They're starting to understand cause and effect. So we like to see them, if I bang 2 blocks together, I want to see them copy me. Their favorite game is to throw the toy and see how many times you pick it up. That is the game of choice for every child this age, but it's actually a really important cognitive milestone. Same with things like peekaboo. It lets me know that they are understanding that cause and effect that I want them to begin to learn. Socially, we have facial expressions. We laugh, We cry when we're sad. We get angry when you take the toys away, things like that. If you call their name, they should turn and at least look at you, or like, kind of acknowledge, hey, that's my name. They won't answer you necessarily, and they may ignore you, but they should kind of have an understanding. A lot of times we start to see stranger danger. That is, although it's a bad thing for parents because it breaks your heart whenever they cry, it's a really important milestone. And it's one that when I don't see it, it worries me. They should know that you're their safe zone, and their caregivers and their trusted adults and siblings. That's the safe zone. That's where I go. So a lot of times you'll start them to see the previously outgoing smiley baby is now all of a sudden clingy and shy. It's just a new developmental, cognitive, social milestone they learned. Same thing for when you drop them off at daycare. They might start crying again where they haven't in months. They might look for you, reach for you. They will calm down. It will be okay. But that lets me know that they are learning that same cause and effect. Babies by this age should most definitely be able to take pureed baby food without any difficulty. And they should be able to take easy dissolved foods fairly well. So those are things like your Cheerios, your Puffs, Cheetos, the little baby cracker things. Basically, think about anything that you put in your mouth and it just kind of dissolves into nothing. We shouldn't be gagging on those. You may have to break them up into pieces. That's okay, but that's what we want to see. They should also start finger feeding themselves, and they should be pretty good at it as long as they've had a couple weeks of practice. If they're brand new to finger feeding, it's going to be messy, but once they get a little bit of time under their belt, it'll get pretty good. A lot of babies can drink from a straw at this age. The youngest I've taught is a 6-month-old because they could not take a bottle, and so we switched to a straw. So if they can't do it, a lot of people haven't introduced it, but now is a great time to start practicing that, because a straw is better for your oral and speech development than a sippy cup. Also, one of the major feeding milestones I look for at this time is, can we move our tongue from side to side in our mouth? When you put a textured food in your mouth, your tongue takes it, moves it to your teeth to chew it, and then moves it back so you can swallow it. So if a baby cannot move their tongue to the side of their mouth, that food is going to get stuck and they're going to gag and gag and gag. So for playing, instead of just looking at a toy and chewing on a toy and seeing what it feels like, we should start experiment. Can this block, if I put this block in this box, what happens? If I press this button, what happens? If I stick my finger in this electrical socket, is mom going to yell at me? Because, that was my son's favorite game. And they should be able to kind of keep themselves entertained briefly, like 2-3 minutes tops. Some can do it longer, and that is great, but they shouldn't need you constantly by their side for every second of the day. However, you need to be constantly watching them somehow, some way, or have them in a playpen safely, something like that. Let's see. We're definitely babbling at this age, which is like consonant and vowel, bubba, da, gaga, those kind of things. Most of them, if not all of them, should be starting to use gestures, like when they want to be picked up and you walk up to them, they raise their arms up. A lot of them are waving at this age. Some of them are still not too sure about that, but the lifting arms, most of them have. A lot of babies start saying their first words by 9 months, but those are the early babies. We want to see like the mamas and the dadas, but they may not be directed at you specifically. It may just be in play randomly. And that's okay. So red flags. If they can't sit by themselves, that is a red flag for this, but also not just the sitting, it's the coming to sit. That means that, hey, we need to step in and give them some help to learn that skill. If they're crawling at this age, but hey, they're doing it by laying on the ground with their belly on the ground and like creeping, using that army crawl motion, so it's not necessarily like a red flag, something is wrong. It's a red flag for, hey, I need to teach them the proper way. Because what most people don't realize is that crawling up on all fours, hands and knees with tummy off the ground, is where you develop all of your depth perception skills. If you do not develop those skills, your fine motor, your visual motor, your gross motor, everything down the line is going to be severely affected. A lot of people figure it out and compensate, because I know a lot of us didn't crawl, but our lives could have been so much better and easier if we did. So if they're only going forward on their belly, we really do need to teach them how to get up on those hands and knees. If they can't pick up any small items at all, no matter how much they try, that's another red flag. And if when you hold them and go to stand them up, those knees or ankles just buckle, that's a red flag too. They shouldn't be able to stand by themselves, but they should be able to at least put some weight in those legs. Cognitively, if you take a toy and like put it behind a cup, if they don't even notice the toy is gone, that's a red flag. No imitation. So if you are banging items and they don't make any attempt to copy you, or if you're putting a toy into a box and they don't make any attempt, that's a red flag. If they aren't interested in those cause and effect games, such as how many times can I drop this before mom walks away, or things like that, that's another red flag. Socially, so on the AAP's milestone list, it says it said that the red flag was that they don't alert or respond to their name. I agree to an extent. However, I'm going to give a little bit of a grace period, because some babies, I mean, if you've called them baby or little sister this, and now you're just starting to call them by their real name, because that's what we do when we have older children, they may not have learned that yet, or they may be taking a little longer, but it's something we just need to be on the lookout for. If they don't notice when you leave your room, that's a red flag. Or if there's no facial expressions with those familiar adults, that too. Self-care, we should be able to put the small food pieces in our mouth, or if we don't tolerate any textures, that may indicate that some feeding therapy is needed. Some of them try and use a spoon, some of them don't, but that was on there too. Play-wise, we should be looking for cause and effect. So if you're not seeing them use that cause and effect play, and they're only touching or only mouthing or only watching things, that is an indication that they're not really playing with a toy. They're just looking at the sensory aspects of it. And also, if they have a very, very strong preference to play by themselves instead of have others with them at this age, that can be an indication we need to intervene. Communication, we want to be starting to use those basic gestures. If there's no babbling sounds, that is a concern. And if they don't imitate you talking to them, well, talking like babbling, like if they go bubba and you go bubba, and then they just like stare off into space, that's something to watch for. So things we can do. So get to work on getting that belly off the ground with crawling. You can put them on their hands and knees over something, like over your leg. It gives them a little bit of support and helps them practice that strength. Reaching for toys on their stomach or on their hands and knees is also going to build that strength we need for those gross motor activities. And the balancing aspect, you can use the ball, or if your baby's sitting, put those toys just out of reach. Encourage them to reach just that little bit further to use those muscles to come back to the center without falling over. Reading to your baby is one of the best things you can do. Look at the books together. They may not know what you're saying or what the words are, but it's the process that counts. Play lots of cause and effect games and play with them as much as you can. A mirror is a great tool because babies love mirrors. They don't really realize it's them in them usually at this age, and it's really funny. And this age is pretty crucial to limit that screen time as much as you can, because they are cognitive enough to know that they enjoy the screen. And so we don't want them to only want the screen and not want to play in other ways, because then all of development becomes delayed. Socially, narrating what you do, talking, try and exaggerate your facial expressions. You can copy theirs even, and just let your baby be with you as much as you can. If it's possible to keep your baby in the kitchen while you're cooking instead of in the living room, do that. Give them their own pot, give them their own spoon, let them bang away. They may stir the spoon too and copy you. That would be a great thing. If it's not safe, it's understandable. Safety of the baby is always going to come first. but whenever you can, include your baby in your activities. For feeding, one of the biggest problems is that the baby is not well supported. So find a high chair that gives them good support. Offer lots of practice opportunities. You can use the mesh feeding bags even to help with texture, because then they can take it out of their mouth and it doesn't get stuck. Toys at this age, a lot of times, should be simple. You don't need the light, sounds, bells, and whistles. And they like to experiment with things. So a block and a cup are great. Limit the amount of toys out, because babies can become very overwhelmed if there's too much. So if you have a lot of toys, that's great. Your baby gets lots of stimulation, but maybe just give them 1 or 2 at a time. And then in a little while, take those away and put 2 more. So for feeding is a very complex process, and there are a lot of factors involved. It usually requires a specialized program tailored to the child's individual needs. So if you're struggling significantly with feeding, it's best to ask for an evaluation by a trained professional rather than risk creating a feeding aversion. Okay, 10 to 12 months. Yay, we made it to a year. You survived. At this age, they should come to standing and pull up on a surface. They should be able to stand by themselves without holding on for quite a while. Cruising along furniture, so that's holding on to furniture and walking sideways along it. And we should see a pincer grasp. That means index and thumb only. That's really hard for the little boys. Cognitively, they're going to actively search for objects that you hide. They're going to imitate gestures. They enjoy those cause and effect games and the play games like patty cake and wheels on the bus. If they're unsure of something, they're going to look to you to know if it's okay, and they're going to take your lead. If you're upset, they become upset. If you're good, they're good. They should play well by themselves for short periods of time, as well as others. At this age, we can definitely drink from a straw, and we should be starting to practice that cup. We should be eating table foods. So, any age appropriate foods. So I think under 1, we still don't do honey, or depending on dietary needs, things like that, cut into small sizes. They should be able to pull off their socks, which is a great fun skill for them and not so much for you. And when you're getting them dressed, they should start helping you by pushing those arms through the sleeves, maybe even pulling it down, not always, but giving it a shot. Play-wise, we should be able to put things in containers. So we should be learning that if the block is big, it can't go into the small cup, but it can go into the big cup. If we have this piggy bank toy, and that's where the large coins come from, and it is like our all-time favorite toy. I think we have 3 of them at work, 1 for every room. And it is great. They're learning that, hey, when the coin is horizontal, it goes in horizontally. When it's vertical, it goes in vertically. At this age, they should be able to turn pages of a thick cardboard book. Now, it may be multiple at a time. That's okay, but they should be able to figure out how to separate out a few to get them to turn. By 12 months, usually we have 1 to 2 words, mama, dada. If they don't and they're close, it's okay though. Some are a little bit behind on that, but we definitely want them using gestures consistently, waving, lifting their hands to be picked up, some pointing for what they want. If you can get a verbal something with the pointing, that's even better. They should be able to follow a verbal command with a gesture. So if you are sitting on the floor with them and there's a block 2 feet away, and you point to the block and say, get the block, they should be able to crawl over there, get the block, and bring it to you. Or at least crawl, get the block, and play with it. Most of them should understand no by this age. They may not listen, but they at least understood that you told them that, and they'll stop and look and then keep going. So red flags: if we cannot stand up or pull to stand, if we cannot pick up small items still, if we're afraid of movement, that is my biggest one. We don't like swings. We don't like slides. We don't like crawling. We don't like being played rough with, and how dads play, where they pick them up in the air really fast and things like that. That's a flag for the vestibular system. Cognitively, we don't look for an item that's hidden, or we can't put things in and out of containers. No imitating familiar adults. Socially, another one, it's actually a good thing if they become upset when you leave. It lets me know they're growing. If there's no interest in other children or themselves in a mirror, that's a flag that those social milestones are delayed. And if they really just want to be alone and do not tolerate you playing with them. A cup, you're going to have to assist them at this age, and it's going to be messy, but they should be able to not choke on the water coming out of it. If they can't tolerate textured foods, then we definitely need to see a feeding therapist and figure out why that is so they can come up with a program to address. And if they're not making any attempts at helping with their dressing or taking off clothes, that means we need to help them out a little. So the play scheme or plays with toys by examining sensory properties. That means they only want to roll the ball and chase it. That's all they want to do all day long. They only want to watch the shadows on the wall. They only want to take the one towel and rub it against their face, those kind of things. Let's see, and those go with cognitive. If they're not responding to their name or using gestures or making attempts at words right now, that's a communication red flag. So things we can do. The fear of movement is one of the biggest issues at this age, because if we're scared to move, we're not going to keep developing and learn to walk and stuff. So rough play. And what I mean by that is, think of how your dads play with the babies, how movements are quick and they're quick stops. And like you kind of toss them on the bed instead of set them gently. Those kind of things help that baby understand movement. You can encourage your baby to stand with toys. Great one for fine motor. I play snacks and ice cube trays. It works on that pincer grasp. The biggest thing to help with cognitive and play milestones is to play with your child and show them how to play. So puzzles, books, cause and effect pop-up toys, putting things in and out, that's the biggest thing. Socially, just getting them around other children their age can make a huge difference, because children are naturally inclined to copy others. If you have trouble with straw drinking, bird feeding is a great thing, where you put your straw in your drink, cover the top with the finger, and then lift it out, and you can let the finger go and the drink falls out. That's a great way to teach straw drinking. And eating together is a great way to encourage expanding diet. If your child isn't helping with dressing, take your time and give them a chance. I know it's going to take 10 times longer, but it'll pay off in the end. Communication, the biggest one is reiterating what your child is saying. So if they're trying to say ball and they say buh, you say ball. It works very well. You don't want to use too many words, because then they tune out or they get confused. So instead of, why don't you go get the Cheerios from the cabinet? You could say, go get Cheerios. And positive reinforcement and redirection is going to work better for getting rid of unwanted behaviors like biting and hitting 9 times out of 10 than a negative consequence. Okay, we're running out of time. Sorry, guys. I talked more than I thought, but we'll try and get through the rest quickly. So 15-month-olds, they should be able to walk. That's the biggest one. They should be able to crawl up some steps and mark on a paper. We should be pretending to use things adults are using. So pretending to drink out of cups, pretending to talk on phones, handing you the phone to answer. They should be using trial and error to figure out how things fit together. They should be starting to imitate things adults do, like hugging toys or petting a stuffed dog instead of the real dog, clapping for themselves. This is when I start to introduce utensils for sure by now. Get them used to it. We definitely want to be off the bottle, and we want to be able to take off our clothes except our shirt. I know it's really annoying, but it's important. Play becomes more structured, and that instead of just exploring with items, they're using them how they should, such as putting pieces into a puzzle, or at least trying. They are gibberish speaking at this age, pointing very well, and following directions without you having to point. Typically, they have about 5 words. So red flags, can't use a pincer grasp, can't crawl up steps, not walking. If they're not walking, you really need to see a physical therapist to evaluate why, because it could be due to an issue with the hips, and that is kind of a tricky thing to look at. So talk to your doctor and go from there. They should also be able to balance on an unstable surface. So like on a squishy mat, they should be able to keep their balance in at least sitting. If they're not imitating adults, if they're not using trial and error, those can be some red flags. If they're not interested in other children or they don't show affection for anyone except primary caregivers, that's a red flag. If they're still struggling with feeding and they're not trying to copy what you're doing for like brushing your teeth and stuff, repetitive and rigid play. So they only want to do this one thing in this one way every single time. And then problems are only 1 to 2 words, frequent vocal stimming, which is just making the same sound over and over with no real purpose to it. Let's see. So one of the most important things for motor skills is let them try and let them fail. Trial and error is one of the best way to learn. Cognitively, moderate screen time still. Babies will learn from a person, but they really don't learn from a screen, even at this age. And allow baby to explore where it's safe. Include them in your everyday activities. They're gonna have tantrums at this age. That's okay. Gently guide them and demonstrate what you want. Let's see. Simple toys are better. Building toys are great. Blocks, magnetiles, Duplos, singing songs, and encouraging your child to communicate by more than just gestures by kind of waiting them out. 18-month-olds, they start doing a whole lot of stuff, but because of time, I'll leave this up and I think they're going to send it out later so y'all can look at it. We're just going to skip to the 2-year-olds. So at 2 years old, they can run, jump, kick, anything. They should start to imitate vertical lines with the pencil, and they should hold the hands with the pencil tips instead of the whole hand. Sorry, hold the pencil with the fingertips instead of the whole hand. They should be able to do very simple puzzles, turn knobs. They notice when people are upset. Potty training that starts to begin. And they have a lot of words at this age, and they like to pretend play. So let's see, let's skip to tips and tricks. Rough and tumble play within safety and within limits is great at this age. Pipe cleaners, Play-Doh, water, utensils, using those to practice strength and fine motor skills are great. Putting beads on pipe cleaners, putting pipe cleaners with colanders, squishing Play-Doh, using a spoon to move water from one bowl to the other. Toddler yoga is great for body awareness. If you Google it, you'll find it. Trial and error, once again, is one of the biggest things you can use for cognitive. At this age, the AAP recommends 1 hour of screen time a day. My take is kind of the same. We want to limit it as much as we can, but these kids are on the move and they get into lots of things they shouldn't. So if you need to use it during dinner, just make sure you're not using it during playtime too. Let's see. Routines are very important because they give your child a sense of security. The other thing about eating at this age is toddlers eat different amounts at different meals. It's okay. Just follow your child's lead. And as long as they're not underweight, we're good. They'll catch back up. They much rather play. Encourage playing with peers, play with your child on your own level, and read to your child daily. That is one of the biggest things you can do to help with development and school. Okay, potty training real fast. Some children are ready by 18 months, some not till 3. Some signs that they're ready is, do they tell you when they're wet or dirty? Do they have a consistent bowel routine? And can they tell you when they need to go? Because if they're potty trained, but they can't tell you when, it's kind of pointless. To prepare, you can practice sitting on a potty. Their clothes can be on, practice pulling the pants up and down, and talk about it, read books about it. There's lots of songs about it. When you're ready, there's a lot of methods, so make sure you do your research, have the sticker charts, the rewards, everything, and be prepared for messes. Gentle encouragement is great. Punishment and scolding, not so much, but be patient. And if it doesn't work, take a break and try again. Some common problems are if your child is struggling to have a bowel movement, increase the liquid intake to make sure they're not constipated, and blowing bubbles on the toilet actually does wonders. I know it's weird, but it works. If they're scared, encourage just sitting, use a timer, read books, and make sure your child's feet touch a firm surface or even use a potty seat with sides. If they're scared of the noises, you can practice in the bathtub with like dropping things in, or the diaper method is something I've used where you sit in a diaper while they're going and then you cut a hole in the diaper and let them go like that, and then you work on taking the whole diaper off. It's a pain, but in a pinch it works. If your child is potty trained during the day but not at naps or night, that's okay. A lot of kids aren't ready for nighttime until preschool because when they sleep so deep, those signals just don't get through. Okay, 3-year-olds, that's our last one we're really going to cover. They do all sorts of stuff. They string beads, they play on all the playground equipment, they have a more adult tile grass, they can draw a circle, they can tell a book from a TV show, they can calm down on their own, given some time. They're working at potty training. They should be able to dress themselves, but it may be backwards. That's okay. We're using 3-word sentences. 75% of language is understandable to strangers, and we really like make-believe play. These are red flags, but we're just going to go to the tips and tricks. Choose the challenging path is my favorite. Instead of walking around the tree, walk over the tree roots. It makes it more difficult, but they learn. Let them practice, let them play, have crafts, hand strengthening. If you don't have hand strength, you can't hold a pencil right. Play-Doh, water squish balls, anything like that. Books are one of my favorite things. Look at a book, make up stories, start discussing safety. I like to sabotage kids' play and purposely mess up what they like, so they have to figure out how to fix it. I know I'm really mean, but it works. Self-care wise, the biggest thing is let your child do it themselves, even if it takes 1,000 times longer. And communication, don't give in to the grunts and the gestures. If you know they have the words, make them use them. Okay, so y'all can kind of look at this on their own, the what's next, what your 4-year-old and 5-year-old doing. And the biggest thing is, remember, everyone develops at their own pace, but there is a range of normal. If you're concerned, ask your pediatrician for a referral or call Early Steps. They're great. They come out to the house, birth to age 3. You know your child best, so advocate what you think they need. And just remember, early intervention always results in a better outcome than just wait and see. So, sorry, anyone have any questions? I know I rushed through some of that. Sorry, I'm not good at this. Okay. I'm going to pull up the chat.
Okay. Please use the chat box if you have questions. I know right now there's a comment in there saying that this could be a longer webinar or even even 2 webinars about age. And the reason is because it's so very informative.
Well, if that's something people are interested in, we definitely could do that in the future. I tend to not actually talk out a presentation. Like, I think about it in my head, and my head is a lot faster. Yeah, so I agree with whoever said that the school expected kids to have a tablet. I have a 2nd grader who just got a Chromebook intermittently, and I'm not happy about that. She needs to learn how to write before she learns to type. Okay. All right. Well, oh wait, there's one more.
Oh, that's me. Okay, letting everybody know we're gonna email the PowerPoint and resources later today in a follow-up email. So this has been a wonderful webinar, and I like how you brought up, this is what they're on, this is the red flags. I liked how you brought all that together. That was so good.
Thank you. And yeah, if anyone has questions or anything, they're welcome to reach out to me. You can call up to Therapy Works office if you want to speak to me directly. Just call up to the office and I'll get back with you.
Okay. And you're outside of our region, right?
What? I'm region 5, or aren't y'all 5?
Oh, you are region 5?
Yeah, I'm 5.
Okay, I was thinking you were from another region. I'm sorry. That's my bad. I didn't realize you were in our region. Yeah. I was assuming you lived in another part of the state. I didn't realize you were right here in our neighborhood. Yeah. And I should have known that because we've had you on before.
Yeah, and I think Oh, China had mentioned that someone had requested, I did a feeding webinar a year or two back, and they requested I do it again. So I think she is planning that for the spring, if anyone's interested in watching that one. I just don't know when
Yes,
yet.
yes, that's a good one too. All
So,
right.
okay.
Okay,
Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
and thank you everyone for attending. We're glad you're here. And thank you, Jenni Dees, for this awesome presentation for us. And again, please watch for our follow-up email. Everyone have a great day. Oh, and before I go, I got to paste the evaluation in the box. I forgot. I have one. I just forgot to paste it. So there it is. You should see the link to the evaluation survey in the chat. But if you complete it here, it's also going to be in the follow-up email. You only need to do it once, so there's no need to do it twice. Just if you've done it one time for us, that works, and we're happy with that. And thank you so much for completing the evaluation survey too, because those results help us, find out new webinars we might need to offer and give us feedback on this one. So if you have any topics or things that you'd like to see in the future, you can note that on your evaluation survey. Again, everyone have a great day, and thank you for attending, and thank you, Jenni, again for this
You're
wonderful
welcome.
webinar.
Okay.